started now. Hello, everyone. My name is Christy O'Malonic, and I am the Network Engagement Manager here at the Children in Nature Network. I'm glad you're all here. Welcome, and thank you so much for supporting Children in Nature Network with your membership. I am joining you today from the land of the Munsee Lenape people. We invite you to share the Indigenous land history of your location in the chat. If you are not familiar with the land history of your location, you can learn about Indigenous territories and lands with Native Land Map. We're sharing that link in the chat as well. I just wanted to, these are also some other ways that you can support Indigenous peoples every day. You can learn about whose Indigenous homelands you're on and normalize land acknowledgements, educate yourself on Indigenous issues, advocate for land back to the Indigenous peoples from whom it was taken, follow Indigenous social media accounts to reshare and amplify Indigenous voices year-round, and support Indigenous causes and Indigenous-owned businesses. I just want to mention a few housekeeping items. Closed captioning has been enabled. Please use the question and answer section on Zoom for any questions for the panelists, which we'll be asking them at the end of our event. And the chat is enabled right now for all attendees, so feel free to chat, comment, and connect during the presentation. I now want to welcome our special guests today, Manny and Carlos. Thank you for joining us. Manny Almonte is the producer of Woodhood and co-founder, president, and CEO of Young Masterminds Initiative. And we have a last-minute change. Andy was not able to join us today, but we are thrilled to have Carlos Davila with us. Los is a facilitator, mentor of Camping to Connect. He's also a founding member of the Mastermind to Connect and a parent that you will see in the film along with his two sons. Thank you so much, Manny and Carlos, for joining us today.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you so much for having us.
But before we get into a conversation, we're going to jump into a private screening of the film, followed by a conversation with you guys, leaving time for audience questions at the end. The film is about 16 minutes long, so everyone sit back, relax, grab your tissues, at least I will. I find this film to be very touching, but more on that later, and enjoy this award-winning short film.
The city is a lot of things. At home, I'm hearing music, food cooking, TV on, cars driving by, people screaming out their window. So I can't really go nowhere. I always fantasize about being in a quiet place, alone. Can I get a sausage, egg, and cheese with hot sauce? Sausage, egg, and cheese with hot sauce. Bread toasted. You know what's wrong with today's generation of the skating community? When they see a person that's struggling to skate, they think it's a poser. But they were just like that. I was just like that too. Really, see? Falling, trying. I wanted to quit skating. I was usually the social kid who talks to everyone. But then I started going down. I didn't like people at one time. They were doing some messed up stuff to me. They still wanted my boards, talk crap, start rumors, and when they don't have money, they steal it. But I don't want to surround myself with people like that, so I don't want to become that person. I stay to myself.
Hurry up, guys.
Manny, come hold this real quick.
What do you mean? What's the issue? Putting this here, right? Money. I might need some help.
When I was growing up, people I knew didn't go camping. Before I went for the first time, I was scared because of all the stories I heard, of course. I had this fantasy of bears attacking me in the middle of the night, or foxes or something, but it's not that bad.
So welcome to Camping to Connect. I'm very excited for what we're gonna do this weekend. You're gonna make new friendships. You know, it's a brotherhood that we're building here, so I'm excited for that. Nature is going to offer us that space of communion. It's gonna offer you the peace that you don't find in the city. And I promise you, you're gonna understand that you too belong to the outdoors, and the outdoors belong to you.
3 simple words that describe where you are right now. Things you're thinking, things you're feeling as we enter this experience.
My name is Doomy. I am jubilant, calm, and like many other people here, I am indeed hungry.
I'm intrigued to see what we're about to do. Open-minded right now, and excited.
I'm Dev. I'm chill right now. I'm chill, I'm hungry, and I want to sleep. I'm tired.
Let's start at the beginning. Historically, there's been a very different relationship between people that look like us in the outdoors. Okay, so lots of laws and legislations were put into place to keep us from being able to enjoy the outdoors leisurely. Usually we were working or trying to run away from something. It's kind of how America was built.
Indeed, yeah.
So we're gonna take a minute to acknowledge who lived here first. All right, so we're just gonna do a brief moment of silence. We're gonna start now. So you have these journals, and what I want you to do is write one challenge that you are facing right now.
I can't even think of one really off the top of my head.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
We have to rip them out.
Yes.
Because we're burning them.
I don't want to burn it.
Burn it.
No, that's disrespectful.
Burn it.
All right. I am this close.
We're gonna burn it.
It's a personal challenge, guys, something that you guys are experiencing, whether it's at school, at home, with your friends, with your family, whatever it is, those are the challenges that we should put down on a piece of paper and put out in the universe.
Is he gonna have seconds?
Yeah, that's actually.
Read through it.
Take this fire. Get him.
He likes you. He likes you. You're good.
He's going around. He's
You're
going
good.
around.
It's a big moment for you.
Bro, who's trying to crawl inside my shirt?
Whenever there's a memorable event such as this, that is how you get what's called your trail name. So now while you're hiking, you'll be referred to henceforth as Daddy Longlegs. Daddy Longlegs, gentlemen!
Now, this is the Appalachian Trail. Does anybody remember what makes the Appalachian Trail what it is?
Well, yeah, it goes from Georgia to Maine.
Exactly. Now, remember how much of this is a mile, and then just go from there, all right?
All right, that's 1 mile.
Uh-huh.
That's 2 miles.
So leaders are what?
Leaders are courteous, wise, and respectful.
Let's go, let's go, let's go.
I say leaders are caring, strong, and positive.
Looked up to, mature, and intelligent.
Okay.
There's not one shape or form of a leader.
This is me. This is John. We're on our hike, and we're gonna be just walking.
These are the experiences that we want you to start to see as normal. Because this is what we're often told we can't do.
What a beautiful night after this rain, huh?
Oh, bro, it was not a good idea to walk in J's.
A lot of times, the reason why something is fearful is because we don't talk about it. We don't express it. We don't give it any air to kind of breathe, right?
What's happening? What's happening on this?
This isn't a path.
Are you sure?
Getting lost is okay. That's how you learn how to navigate.
You have to express those fears and take them out of the internal space that they're in, because you can't really process them if you keep them internal.
This is a really scary experience, man. You hear that? This person's challenge is not communicating well.
This person's challenge is swimming.
This person feels self-doubt and not feeling good enough.
The fear of opening up to people.
Death.
Finding purpose in life.
Ooh.
People didn't like me. A lot of people just thought I was annoying. And, you know, it just really made me feel alone.
I don't like being alone for like long periods of times. Like, I resonate with this fear because like being alone just makes me feel like kind of scared.
I don't like to, but I think I got social anxiety. I just don't like talking to people who I don't know.
At some point, you got to figure out, like, who do I want to be? So lean into who you are. Lean into that quirkiness. Lean into that thing that makes you unique, right? That shouldn't be something that is a negative. That's what makes you the dope human that you are.
All right, we got to get to the fun stuff because y'all got to eat y'all some more. Keep that no music beat. Everybody got to jump in. Everybody got to jump in. I'll lead it off. I said it. It's all gravy.
I'm going last.
Go music.
Why?
Now you got to go second.
Bid now. S'mores get bid now. You don't want no smoke? Ooh. You threw a lot of shade over there. I really didn't like it. But these s'mores, they really kind of fire. Ooh. So we chilling at the campsite. Finna rap all day and night.
Okay.
He almost looked at some
Eating on my marshmallows.
detail of the marshmallows.
Unless you want to burn black.
Again, reach up and now over towards the left. Feel that stretch on the right. Bring those hands to your chest. Close your eyes and just breathe for 30 seconds.
I find brotherhood on this trip is we're all doing something to help us help the other person. I'm doing this for this person. He's doing something for that person. He's doing something for that person. So if you don't do your part, it's like the domino effect. This doesn't get done, that doesn't get done, that doesn't get done.
What we're gonna do is, you're gonna give one word that describes what your experience has been, and then you're gonna toss it to literally anybody else in the circle who hasn't spoken, and then that's it.
I appreciate Mr. Frank over there for talking to me when I was mad and being there for me. And this experience was fun.
One word I would say for this experience was exciting. All the stuff like I never hiked before up there, and I'm proud I survived my first night camping.
There's a certain level of closing in that we inherently do when we're in closed-in spaces all the time. Being in this open space, it allows you to breathe differently. And a lot of these kids haven't had fresh air.
One word I would say for this trip is enlightening, because like I really was inspired by nature, and it really helped me like calm down and like consider my life.
We're taking things from these experiences that are gonna make these young boys into amazing men.
Eye-opening, if that makes sense. Because I've been here so many times, but at the same time, I'm always doing something new. Always. So, and now I want to do more things. Brotherhood is important because you build bonds with people that you didn't know.
On three, camping to connect.
They went from strangers to brothers. And now, this is like our hood, basically. This is the Woodhood. That's all there is to it.
Love everything about that film, the content, the story, the artistry, the honesty. Kudos to you, Manny, and to Carlos. The first thing I want to know is, did either one of you get any trail names during that trip?
That's a great question, and no, it hasn't been earned yet. As far as we've gone and hiked on the Appalachian Trail, I don't think there hasn't been anything as eventful as Daddy Longlegs earned there. So not yet.
Not yet. Okay, to be continued. Can you I was just watching the film, it's so impactful, and just thinking about you, Carlos, and having that experience in multiple roles as a facilitator and your education and psychology background and being a parent, are you able to talk a little bit about how that trip impacted you and maybe a little bit about how it impacted your children or all the boys on the trip?
Absolutely. Thank you. I think for me, it was hearing what was coming out of the experience for the kids, right? Like, there was something about that space that created such genuine, open conversations with the children that were there. So being able to kind of experience that firsthand, and even hearing my own children, right, saying things that, like, was literally like bawling, crying at a campfire, right? Because my 15-year-old, and if you have 15-year-olds, you know, they don't talk about their emotions, expressing like his emotions about how he felt about me, you know, as a dad. Like, we've had children that have been on these trips that have told us things that they haven't discussed with their own parents yet. So I think there's such an amazing level of openness that I've experienced on these trips. And for me, being able to, you know, every time I watch the video, I kind of get a little teary-eyed, because a lot of these kids don't have the opportunity to be in a space that they feel comfortable enough engaging in the way that I've seen on these camping to connect trips. And again, as a psychologist, when I kind of extrapolate that to all of the kids in my own community and in communities around the world, you know, it makes something like this project even more impactful. Because like I said, like, this is not just about these kids. This is about who these kids are going to become and the impact that a program like this and the normalization of these types of conversations in these types of spaces, like, all of that has such a, and I can provide data for anyone that wants it, but has such a significant impact on the development that these children are going to have and what they're normalizing in their own, you know, in their own neighborhoods. You know, their parents now want to go camping. Their friends from school are like, hey, what's that thing that I saw you doing? It looks kind of fun, right? So I think the norming of a lot of this stuff is what's been the most impactful for me.
Do you have anything to add to that, Manny? How the experience kind of shaped and changed you as a person?
Well, yeah, I can add a lot to that, because my life has been impacted greatly in different ways, you know, just by, you know, founding the nonprofit organization, the Houses Camping to Connect, the program that the kids are in. Having come into this space of a nonprofit organization, you know, running, being at the you know, head of something that I didn't set out to be a part of, really. We are, Los and I are part of a men's collective that I co-founded in 2016. And, you know, Los has been from the beginning, you know, a founding member of it. And it was a collective that we started just to get men to come together and show their emotions, to show vulnerability, accountability, with the goal of becoming the best versions of ourselves. That's it. That's why it's called the Mastermind Connect, because there's a concept by Napoleon Hill. It says that when two or more, you know, people or minds, you know, come together with a common goal, they form a mastermind. And that was the goal. How do we become the best versions of ourselves? And to get to that path, finding balance in life was key. Being able to have, you know, real conversations, not just saying, yeah, I'm all right, I'm okay, when somebody asks you, you know, how you doing? And like we like to say, you know, keeping it real, right? And in order for us to help each other grow and come out of our comfort zones, we decided to have three different tracks. One is build, one is enhance, and the other one was give back. So we were doing things together, were things that some members were passionate about or proficient in a particular area, to learn and experience things like financial literacy and how to, learning about cryptocurrencies and real estate investments and that sort of thing from the build perspective, right? From that lane of being financially secure to provide for our families and for ourselves. Then enhance had to do with mind, body, and soul. So wellness, nutrition, talking about relationships and mental health and spirituality, right? So Laws has been in the space of fitness and a professor. He immediately took on the role of bringing the members of Mastermind Connect at that time into that space of doing high intensity interval training and stretching and yoga and all these different things. Now, all of that led to then the third track, which is give back. And at first, we wanted to give back to the community, and we were doing career panels or rather workshops on how to start a business and that sort of thing, right? But we quickly realized in 2017, after supporting the efforts or the passion of one of our members who was an after-school program basketball coach, he wanted to find support from the rest of the brotherhood in doing something for the young men in Brooklyn, New York, and two of the most underserved neighborhoods in Brooklyn, Brownsville and East New York, where Mike Tyson is from. And doing that work, we realized that A, we loved working with these kids directly, and B, that there's the next generation of men who were going to come into this brotherhood where we were learning and unlearning many things at a certain age and realizing of how much better will be the decisions that we'll be able to make by having this information and these experiences that we were gaining at this age as adults by simply working with the younger generation, right? And that led to the formation of Young Masterminds Initiative as we started to do more and more of that work. And one of the experiences that I found that the Mastermind Connect members, the men, were pushing back against when I proposed it. We had done, Muay Thai kickboxing. We had done Bikram yoga in a candlelit room. We had done, high intensity training. We had also social events and other workshops. But when I say camping, let's go camping upstate New York, I didn't even get a no. I was dismissed. I was like, come on, man. They were like, come on, man. We don't do that. And I'm an immigrant. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. I lived in New York City for the last 26, 27 years, moved to Denver, Colorado a year ago. But at that time, I didn't necessarily understand immediately why I was being dismissed that way. And as we were talking, I kept asking, but why not? The answer was like, Black people don't do that. Black people don't go camping. We don't go come on, man. Let's go do something else. And I kept pushing, and with the support of one of our members who had been part of Peace Corps before he went to college, and lived in Colombia in the jungle and Cambodia. He was the one who said, no, we should do that because we actually we said that we're going to come out of our comfort zone and do things that experience things and then decide whether we like it or not, right? But that was a commitment. And that's when we ended up bringing like 14 men to upstate New York to go camping. And we called it Camping to Connect because of Mastermind Connect. And, we went hiking and we cooked together. And then we sat around the campfire having conversations about what we were struggling with and our relationships with our fathers and everything. And, you had grown men in that space who were, crying and breaking down basically because they had so much held inside. And after they did that and realized how much they loved the space they were in and working together out in nature and breathing fresh air and having technology around, then they decided they wanted to do more of that. And then more members were able to come out. And because we were working with the young men in other areas, we wanted to then expose the young men to go camping to connect as well, and through the efforts of Andy Isaacson, one of our co-founders of this particular program, Camping to Connect, we were able to go to Governor's Island off of New York Harbor, a little islet that was part of the U.S. Coast Guard and a training facility. And they allowed us to camp there for overnight. And we were the first ones, I believe, to do so. So I'm saying all of that to say it's been a fantastic journey that where I didn't set out to start a nonprofit organization or lead it. I didn't set out to work with kids at that time. But the more we were doing, these different things, the more value we found that it was bringing to our lives, it was bringing to my life, and the more value that I felt that I was able to bring to my community. So it gave me purpose. So now this is all I, live and breathe at this moment.
Thanks for sharing the history there and the connections between the different programs, Mastermind Connect, Young Masterminds Initiative, and Camping to Connect. Manny and I had a chance to connect a month or so ago, and I remember you sharing, Manny, that it was more challenging for some of the youth to take off their socks and shoes and put their bare feet on the ground than it was for them to give up their cell phones. Talk about coming outside of your comfort zone.
Actually, it was the opposite. It was the opposite. It was harder for them actually to take off their socks.
Yeah, harder for them to touch the ground.
Yes.
Right? So in that situation, Carlos, how do you coach someone through that?
I mean, I think we start the weekend making it clear that there are some things that are gonna feel uncomfortable because you haven't experienced them before. So I think it's something that we're priming when we're picking them up in Brooklyn. We're priming as we're driving for 2 hours, right? So by the time we get there, it's not kind of a novel ask, right? There's always going to be that hesitation, but I think what's been great at this point is that you have enough of the kids that kind of understand the ebb and flow, that what if the other kids are doing it, you don't really have an excuse for not doing it. And I think it's one of those opportunities, and we're actually very mindful of purposely creating these opportunities to ask these kids what your why is, right? When you're getting this pushback for certain things, explain to me the why, right? Tell me the story that you're telling yourself about this thing, right? Because a lot of times it's you don't know what you don't know, and you haven't experienced what you haven't experienced, right? So for us, a lot of times it's, this is low-hanging fruit as far as things that you can do that are going to be different. You're going to be doing a lot more things this weekend that are going to feel weird. You're going to be sleeping outside. You've heard all the bear stories and all the, all of these things. You're going to do things that you're not comfortable with. This is a very sort of easy intro into that process. And honestly, I at this point have been on many trips. There's been pushback initially, but there's never been a situation where someone is just like, no, I completely refuse, right? Because I think we do a good job of norming what the expectation of the collaborative experience is going to be. So yes, there's that pushback, but it isn't a complete no when it comes down to it. So it does become part of the normal part of the weekend and the process.
Let me just add to that real quick. It's amazing to see how when we have these new kids and you ask them to remove their shoes and socks, how it's a whole process, right? Like Los was saying, if they push back, but the pushback, when they start giving in to it, it's a process. So they take off their shoes, but they keep their socks. And then we have to say, come on, man, let's go, let's commit, let's fully commit. And then they take off their socks, but then they put the socks on top of the shoes, and then they put their feet on top of the socks. So they're still not touching grass. So it's like a whole, come on now, you did this. Now, next step, let's do the other. You can do it. It's like a whole convincing. But they end up doing it, and then it's normalized for them. So
great. A couple of questions have come in, actually, I think, about how the youth are selected to participate in this program. So Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have open enrollment through our website, and we do, I believe, a decent job in showing our work through social media and whatnot, and also within community relationships that we have with other community organizations in New York, as well as the New York City Department of Education, which is the largest department of education in the country. At first, that came about through a program they had called Urban Ambassadors, where they had kids from all 5 boroughs, usually high school juniors and seniors, where they helped them with getting into college, right? Scholarships, making the decision on what path to take. So we were supporting that program as we wanted to give back by volunteering to work on curating the career panels and curating workshops about life skills, and Camping to Connect was one of them as well. During the pandemic, unfortunately, that program shut down, and we were able to secure some of the kids because we had a bridge to cross. We didn't have a direct contact with the kids and parents. It was all through that program. We were meeting them very often and mentoring, but at that time we had to reach out, whatever way we could to maintain the connection to those kids. And then we opened it up to other, directly with some of the schools in the city. And one of the biggest resources for us, which is the way that DeVaughn, the main character in the film, where he came from, was a school counselor who learned about us and about our program and referred a few of her students to our program. It's not the first time that we have had that. We have some school counselors who are working with kids who they understand that they need more than the traditional, school programming and everything. They have been a great resource for us. So the program is at no cost to participants or the parents, and it's not designed to be a one weekend, one summer seasonal thing. It's an ongoing program where we receive kids between 12 and 18 years old. And when they come in, they're with us until they become young adults at 19. And at that point, they become part of the larger brotherhood, the Mastermind Connect. So they still continue their process of growing and learning and sharing experiences with other men who look like them and understand where they're coming from.
Great. And while you're sharing earlier before, Manny, you were talking a little bit about your upbringing and kind of your nature story and how it kind of weaves into all of these initiatives and the work that you're doing with Camping to Connect. Carlos, would you be able to share a little bit about kind of your nature story and your experience growing up and how that has played into this and maybe shaped and changed throughout the years?
So, plot twist, I did not go camping before 2020 when I finally checked my spam and saw Manny's emails about the trip. So for me, I was born in Puerto Rico, but I've been in New York since I was about 4 or 5. So yes, I've been hiking before. We didn't call it hiking. It was going to the Rio, which ended up being a hike, right? But I'd never been camping before 2020. And for me, initially, it was what at the time felt like a safe way to get my children outside of the house. And I was hooked after the first trip. I mean, I think it was rainy that first trip, so it wasn't like the cutest trip to go on, but there was just something about being back in nature that part of my brain from being a kid in Puerto Rico and literally having a stream in my backyard, like living in New York for as long as I had, like I kind of forgot those memories, and I felt very detached from that space. And the moment that I was out there and set up the tent and just kind of sat to the side and just listened to the trees rustling, listen to the air kind of moving throughout the campsite, there was something about it that just felt, I don't know, opening for me, if that makes sense. And I've honestly taken whether it was with Mastermind, whether it was with the children, I've actively tried to take advantage of every opportunity to go out there. And yes, a lot of times it's because I want to give back, but selfishly, a lot of it is I just want to be back out there, right? I want to be in that space again. So it's definitely changed just my leisure activities, right? Like I have a whole wall of like camping gear now, right? And like my kids have like all their camping and they're excited about these trips. And you know, where we may possibly be doing something in Denver this summer. So it's definitely changed my perspective on camping, and also the utilization that I can have for it in my life, where now like it feels like a space for me to detach and kind of break away from the city or from, you know, the phones and the technology. So it's been a very curing kind of space for me.
Thanks. I think one of the reasons why the film is so impactful is because the narrative of Woodhood and, you know, men of color leading other young men of color in nature is so rare. And, you know, I love how you call that out in the film. And a question has come in that kind of relates to that. Like what kind of advice or, you know, input you have for people in this space, you know, white practitioners, BIPOC practitioners, how to help kind of change that narrative and make camping and the nature experience more inclusive for everyone?
Great question. I think it's there needs to be a cultural shift that happens across the board. I mean, we sometimes speak about these programs and the need for more programs like this, for that representation by, you know, facilitators, yes, but also leadership, right? Who look like the young men that we're serving and understand their nuances that, you know, these communities are going through and have gone through in the past, and how that affects what we are today. But one of our biggest challenges is not so much with gaining access to some of these outdoor recreational spaces, because we have found allies like yourself who understand the value of this and what's been missing, and many of the reasons why how we ended up here, right? At the very least, when it comes to policy, right? But then the communities of color have been affected in so tremendously in this area, where we do not see ourselves in using the outdoors as a piece of refuge and healing, right? It's interesting that when Los was talking about his journey, and he was born in Puerto Rico and grew up in the Bronx. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. And he said something very important about when he went camping, how everything came back to him, right? Like where he used to experience. And I've actually gone through the same. But it also gives me more information and data that I'm sure for the people in the audience here at Children and Nature Network would find valuable and insightful, which is, you know, I grew up in an island. I grew up in the capital, so the city, and my dad's family is from the middle of the island, where the Sierra is. Before the island of Hispaniola received that name, where Haiti and Dominican Republic, you know, share that island, the Tainos had called it Haiti, and Haiti means mountainous, you know, region or area. And my family lived at the foothills of the Sierra, and my family always had an affinity for the mountains. And my dad always made it a point to have a cabin in the woods. In fact, he spent the whole COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 out in that cabin, you know, and he had like plantains and everything that he needed, you know, around it that he was growing. But when it comes to my journey, I did not realize until I went camping for the first time in New York in 2015 by somebody else offering to camp, how living in the concrete jungle, living in an urban environment, living in the city, you are so caught up in that wheel of the grind of, you know, the social, you know, work, trying to pay the bills or climb a ladder, whether it's social or corporate or anything, trying to make it, right? And you come into communities like Uptown Manhattan, where they call it Little Dominican Republic, the largest Dominican community outside of the island, where you have so many people working 2 jobs, like my uncle. My uncle has worked at the same factory for the last 50 some years. And my aunt doesn't speak a lick of English. And he's a homemaker. And their 2 sons, who were born and raised in New York, they have never experienced the outdoors recreationally because they were never being exposed to their parents working that type of, living that type of life. They don't go to Harriman State Park, which is the largest state park in New York, 40 minutes away from Uptown Manhattan. They don't go there they don't see themselves doing these activities. In fact, there is a place, they have 7 lakes in Harriman State Park, and one of them, it has a beach, and they call it Dominican Beach. And every summer you have a troop of Dominicans and other Latinos going there and barbecuing and spending time together with their friends and family in that area. And they may have that opportunity once a summer to meet their families and do that, because again, everything else that they have to do to survive. But when they go there, as they driving through the park to get to that beach, there are many people who are entering the trails. The Appalachian Trail crosses through it, and they have so many different people, carrying their backpacks and their hiking poles. But what happens is that the people that are doing this, as they see them on the road about to get on the trail, are people who don't look like them, and like my uncle and my aunt or my cousins, right? So they do not see themselves in that. I remember seeing it, going to that beach and seeing people hiking. I didn't see myself doing that either, because we're not invited to that. Traditionally we haven't, and these are not activities that we have been seeing ourselves represented in. The relationship with the woods and camping or hiking, for us, it looks very different when it comes to being in outdoor spaces. Many people of color, Black and brown people, when you talk about the outdoors, there's an association with either working the fields, and I'm not talking about just back in slavery, I'm talking about today, okay, for Black and brown people, or running away from something, being chased, the perpetuation of in media, in movies, Black people camping with other people, usually in a horror movie, and they're the first ones to get killed. So the woods, the outdoors, it's not necessarily recreational for us in the way that's being portrayed. And when you ask someone like my aunt or my cousin about nature and camping or hiking, that's foreign to them. Now, I grew up in DR, and I went to summer camp. And when I visited my family in the middle of the island, we didn't say, let's go hiking or anything like that. It was about, hey, you want to go get some mangoes from Mr. Garcia's street? And we would start walking. It would be 8 miles. And on the way there, on the way back, we'll cross a little stream or a river. We'll take a dip in it and spend an afternoon there and then come home. We didn't have special footwear for that or anything. We're just doing stuff, right? So even that, when you come to the United States and you become an adult or you have your own kids and you are in urban environments like that, you forget that actually exists. Or in fact, the only time that you remember that is when you actually go and send your kids for the summer there, or you go there. But the association with the outdoors is there, the safety that's there, not with the hustle and bustle of living in a city here where you see yourself just trying to make it. You do not see nature as a resource for you there. So it wasn't until somebody invited me to go camping in the summer of 2015 to Lake George that it all came back to me by being in that space, how beautiful it was to be out in nature, to like relaxing, right? Just enjoying the peace and the fresh air. So, and that's why in 2016, as we were looking to do, share some experiences with the Men's Collective, I immediately proposed that because I had just been reminded of how great it was. But again, if you live in like our communities where we are placed and the people who grow up in that environment, and there's no reminder that we too belong out there, if these kids don't have these experiences early on, then they too get caught up on that wheel where where their block or their building may be safety, and going across a certain street becomes dangerous. So yes, it's important to expose the young men to this, but it's more important to expose also the adults. So part of what we do is that we do have a gear library that we're building, and the parents of the kids are seeing the effect of this when the kids come back from day hikes or from camping weekends, and they want to do more, and now they're asking the parents to take them, or they're showing the parents the benefit of their experience. Now we have parents going hiking and camping, and then we provide the resources, all trails, the app, we have accounts with them, pro accounts that we can provide to participants and their parents, and they get to use it. So we show that the kids, we teach them how to read a trail map, and we give them trail maps for them to use and go with their parents and experience that. Hiking boots, camping tents, sleeping bags, everything they need. So now you have a 14, 15-year-old kid leading the way and showing their parents about how to hike and how to pitch a tent and all these different things. So it's larger, it's bigger than us, it's bigger than the kids. It's about community.
Thank you for sharing that. And this, everyone knows this was a private screening of the film because the film is currently not public, but people are asking in the chat, how can we expose more audiences to this film? How can we help with your mission? How would you suggest duplicating this effort in other parts of the country to impact more families? Can you speak a little bit to those questions and what the future holds for Woodhood?
Certainly, yeah. I know we running out of time soon. I get caught up sometimes, and I'm very passionate about this program and the journey that I have, personally, but also speaking for the rest of the guys. The film, came about thanks to a media grant from Patagonia, and it's right now doing the film festival circuits. It won best short film at the Banff Mountain Film Festival recently. So it's also going on their global tour. It's been screened at the Vancouver Film Festival, Kendall's Film Festival in the UK, and other film festivals in the US. It premiered last May at the Telluride Mountain Film Festival. So because it's still making its rounds, we're only able to screen it through private, pre-release events like this one, so that we can have a conversation about it with people who are interested in issues like nature deficit disorder and how our program is tackling it. Also we do need funding and resources and introductions to so that we can scale introductions to other organizations and brands that can support what we do, and foundations that support this type of programming. So for now, it's available at the film festivals and through this type of private, pre-release conversations. We are looking to release the film, God willing, towards the end of January to the public. And I believe also that this is only the beginning for this type of content and portrayal in media of the type of program that we're doing, because we're doing much more than just taking the kids hiking and camping. And just to be clear about our program, the goal of our program is not, we use nature as a resource. The goal of the program is not to go camping. The goal of the program is to connect. That's why it's called Camping to Connect. So to connect with each other, to build brotherhood, for the kids to connect with themselves, and then to also connect with nature, obviously, as we are out there and are working with them. So, in the future, we're looking to create a playbook that we can then use for a sister organization that works with young women, or simply bringing that element in with young women who can work with other women who are in the same path of finding balance in life the way we are, and build sisterhood. It is something that we cannot personally provide, because the whole idea of the program is to be able to relate with these young men. But we are gathering resources and a foundation so that we can support that type of programming for women to do. We are expanding beyond New York City. Our office is in Brooklyn. We started working with kids from Brooklyn, but we're not only exclusive to Brooklyn, right? We're working with kids from all 5 boroughs, in New York City. We execute programming at the Delaware Water Gap most times on the New Jersey side, so we can work with kids from Jersey. We have worked with kids from Philadelphia that have come up to meet us there. I moved to Denver, Colorado, because there's also a hood here. Want to make it a Woodhood. So I am expanding the program here, and then we have Mastermind Connect members in Washington, D.C. So in 2023, we're going to be doing some activations there. I am traveling at the end of, not at the end, December 16th to spend a weekend in Texas, in Corpus Christi, where we have men who want to start a chapter of Mastermind Connect with the purpose, with the goal of actually doing this work with the young men as well, you know, including like school principals and stuff that have requested our services. And the idea is like, no, it's not just our services. You know, we're building a community. So if you want to be a part of that, then we welcome you and do that. So now we're starting that too. So we're expanding and scaling is costly, because now we have to go into operations, running an organization. It's not only the funding for food or transportation that we need. Now we need to actually be able to run an organization that can scale and affect impact at a larger scale.
Thanks, great. And I know Amelia dropped in the chat a link to your website with your donate page. I know you're working on accumulating funds so that you can start to build a staff and scale your work and get it out to more people. So sad that we've come to the end of the hour. I feel like we could talk for so much longer, but I wanted to thank all of our members for joining and for supporting Children in Nature Network. And of course, thank you so much, Manny and Carlos, for joining us and sharing this award-winning film with us and the important work that you're doing. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Just for those that are on, a recording will be sent to all of the registered members in about a week. It is going to be password protected because the film is still not available public, but then it will be made available on our website near the end of January when the film is public, and we look forward to having that happen and being able to share that out on our social media channels as well, so that we can just continue to get the word out about Woodhood and Camping to Connect and all of your important programs.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you all.